Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this today's video, we are going to create reusable forms using JSON configuration. And guess what? It's easier than what you think. I will guide you through the entire process from setting up your Angular project to designing your own dynamic form with just a JSON file. Not just creating the forms, we will also see how do we add the validation rules for all your form controls. So it is basically like building a Lego blocks for your form. You will also see how to make your form adapt to your needs and save tons of time in the process of creating them one by one. So whether you are an Angular pro or just getting started with Angular, so this tutorial is for you. Alright, so without wasting further ado, let's get right into the video. So before creating the project, so let's take a quick demo about what this dynamic form and how is it helping me. Okay, so for that let me open up my VS Code, and in that let me go in this app component. Okay, if you see right now I cannot see anything on my browser. Okay, so as you can see I have this app dynamic form. This is one of my component which I have created, and if you go on the TS file, there I have this register form config. Okay, and I'm passing this config to this property register form. So what I will do, right? So this app dynamic form can take a form property, and what we need to do, we just need to pass our register form. Okay, and this register form is my config, okay, which I have created, the register form config. Okay, now if I save the changes, right, so something will happen. Okay, so but before to show the output, let me just show you like what this will be creating. So I have already created a video on my YouTube channel, which is my Angular 15 CRUD by using Material UI. So I have this gym registration app. Okay, as you can see here I have a lot of fields created already. So what this will be doing, right, this form, dynamic form will be doing, this will create the same form. Okay, so once I click on save changes, and if I go on the browser and if I open up my dynamic form building, can you see it created a gym registration form for me. Now if you guys are asking me like why this design looks different than this, because this form is created in Angular Material and I have created this in Bootstrap. If you want to create a form in Material, then you can go ahead and follow this video, but you want something more cool, then you can stick to this video and you can create your own dynamic form by using this JSON configs. So not just creating the form, this also helps you to do the validations as well. Like for example, all these form controls are required, and if I click on this confirm registration, it throws all the validation errors, that first name is required, last name is required, and all of this. Okay, not just that, this can also do the regex, like we have a pattern validations, right, in Angular, so that also we can check while creating this dynamic form. Like for example, this first name, if I add some value here like S, so can you see it's throwing me the second error because this guy has two validations. First, it should be required, and second, the first name should be 8 to 15 character uppercase without space. For example, currently it is a single character. If I say SASHIKUMAR, it is more than 8 characters, so this is satisfied, but this need uppercase. So let me do a uppercase here. So if I do uppercase, right, with 8 to 15 characters, so this does the job. But if I add a space, can you see it says without space, so there should not be any space, so I can remove the space. What if I increase the character more than 15? So can you see if I increase the character more than 50, okay, sorry, first of all it should be all caps. So if I increase the character more than 15, can you see again I get the error. Okay, so we are able to also achieve this kind of validations as well. Now let me just fill in the form for you, and then maybe let me click on the confirm registration to show what happens. So as you can see, I have filled in all the required fields, and now all the errors are gone. Now let me inspect element, let me go in the console, and let me click on confirm registration. Let's see what happens. Let me zoom in. I think this is better. And now if I click on confirm registration, I can see the form is valid, and also I can see the what is my form value. So as you can see, all my form values get binded as well. So this is the beauty of our dynamic form creation. Okay, now for example, let me just show you one more thing. Now this has a big config, as you can see here in the constant. Now for example, I want to create a login constant. I want to create a login form. So what I will do, right, so this is how my config looks like. Okay, so this has a title, this has a save button, this has a reset button, and this has a bunch of controls. Okay, so as I want to create a login form should have a email and it should have a password. Okay, so this is how the config look like. We have this name, label, value, placeholder. We can also add class to add a dynamic class so that it can adjust accordingly. I can have a type. What is the type? Like input type, right? So we can also pass the type, and the best thing is this validators. Okay, so we can pass the array of validators, which will look something like this. Okay, now let me show you how this form gets created. So now again, let me go in the HTML. I will have to use app dynamic form and pass in the input, which is form, and pass in your login form. Okay, again, if you guys are confused, where is this login form coming? So this is coming from here, as I have showed you, right, the login form config. So I'm just imported this login form config and I'm just passing this to property, this login form property. Now if I save the changes and if I go on the browser, can you see I got one more form created, which is login to Gmap. Okay, let me just comment the first one so that you can have below. Okay, save the changes and this is how it looks. Now for example, right, I want to change the styling of this. Okay, I want to change the styling of how I can do that. So for example, here, as I have passed in the config, there is a class. So if I make this as md6 and I'll make this also as md6. Okay, so these are nothing but my Bootstrap classes, and I have a Bootstrap already installed in this Angular project. So if I save the changes, can you see this adapts everything whatever you pass, and now my form md12 becomes md6, and this is divided equally here. And if I click on login again, so can you see it throws the validation error. Can you see I have one more validation, which is the email is not valid. If you want to make this form valid, you have to pass a valid email ID, which is this @gmail.com. and same for the password. The password is required, so I'll have to put, and it says that minimum 8 characters should be required. Okay, so minimum char should be 8, so let me add a minimum 8 character. And once I pass, the form gets valid. And if I inspect element and let me go back to this console, let me click on the submit, and once I click on submit, the form is valid, which is true, and I can see my values as well. So this was all the demo part about how this dynamic form actually helping me. Now let's go ahead and create your own project, and let's see how we build this dynamic form in Angular. Okay, so I have opened up my command prompt in this folder YouTube projects, and I will be creating a new project from scratch. So let me show you what is the command to do that. So it is ng new, and I want to create a form builder. So I will be giving the name as dynamic form builder YT. Okay, for YouTube. Okay, and also I will be doing one thing extra here, which is standalone. So I will be creating a standalone project. So standalone equals to true, and just hit enter. It will ask you to add routing, say yes, and styling should be SCSS, and hit enter. So now this will install all the necessary packages. I have shown this a lot of time in my previous video, so it will take some time to install all the packages. So once this is done, I'll just be back. So as you can see, my project is installed successfully. Now let me go in that folder by saying cd dynamic form builder YT. Okay, now I'm inside this folder. Let me open up my VS Code inside this. So now my VS Code is open. Let me just make it big. Yes, now we are ready to start with the steps for creating this dynamic form builder. Also, let me take a moment to introduce to you about my new blog channel, which I have already showcased in the last video, that this Let's Program blog. As you can see, I have already created this blog about creating the reusable form using JSON config in Angular. So if you want to follow the blog version, so that also you can do. But if you're stuck at any step while reading this blog, or you're not able to create it, so that's why I have this YouTube video as well for you guys. Okay, but if you really want you to just go ahead and read the blog and implement it, so you are welcome to do that as well. As you can see here also that I have created everything step by step, so you can follow all the steps to create your form. Okay, let's start with the first step, which is installing the Bootstrap. Okay, so for that, let me open up my Chrome window and let me just search for Bootstrap. Okay, so if you go on this Bootstrap website, open up this bootstrap.com, and if you scroll down, so you can just copy this link. Okay, so let's copy this link and go in your project and go inside index.html. So all you need to do, just paste it just below this, and you can remove this cross origin, which is not required for us, so I will be removing it, and that's how it should look like. So by adding this link, your Bootstrap is installed. So now what you want to validate, right, if it is working or not. So what you can do, you can go in your index.html and you can remove all this existing code, and you can just make use of a button. So you can use this button and you can add a class to it by saying btn primary. So this should show a blue button on your website. Okay, so let me first start the website it's not start, so let me start it. So to start the website, let's open up the terminal and we have to hit a command ng-serve. Okay, if this says, always say no need to share anything. Okay, now this is generating the browser bundles. Let it get compiled. So as you can see, this is compiled successfully, and now if you go on the browser, if you refresh the page, as you can see, we are getting a blow something, but there is no content. So for that, let's add something. Bootstrap button, save the changes, and here you can see the Bootstrap is installed successfully. So my step 1 is already done. So now what is my step 2? My step 2 is to create the config, JSON config. So you can do that by using two things. Either you can create a .json file in the assets, or you can directly create a JSON constants. So I will be using the JSON constant because it is easy to do. So let me create a new folder here, give it the name as constants. Okay, and inside this I will be creating my first constant, which is register form.constant.ts. okay, and inside this I will create the config file, which is export const, and give it a name register form config. Okay, and this will be my object, a JSON object. And inside that, first thing what I will need is a form title. So I will have a form title, and this will be of type string, and I can give a title as registration form. Okay, and second thing, I need to have a save button because I have two buttons, which is success and one is the secondary button. So I will give it a name as save button, and this is the save button title. Okay, so I want to give a title as register. Then I can have a reset button, so I'll say reset, to resetting the form basically. Okay, so reset button title, I'll say reset. Okay, so these three basic things are done. Okay, so what is the important thing what I need is the form control. Okay, so I will be showing you how to create your first form control. So what is this form control? This form control is basically an array of objects. Okay, so to create an array, let's see how can we do that. So let's give it a name as form controls, and inside this form controls you can pass the array of objects. Like this is the array of, this is my first object, so you can pass the different controls as in single object. Okay, so my first object is nothing but a first name. So what I will do, right, first thing I need to pass a name. Okay, I'll pass a name and I will give it here as first name. Now you'll ask, what is this name actually? So this name is nothing but your form control name. Okay, the second thing will be the label. What is the label of that form? So you can add that here as well, label, and I will give a label as first name. Okay, now second thing is the, if that form has a default value, so you can use this as a default value, but for me the form is empty, so I'll just keep it as a blank. Okay, your form can also have a placeholder, so I can, let me add that placeholder here, and this will also be empty at the moment. Okay, so as I have showed you, right, we can add dynamic classes as well. So let me just use that class property here. So class, and I can give a default value or whatever you feel like. So let me add it as a md6 at the moment. Okay, and the third thing is you can add in the type. So what is the type of your form? Is it a text? Is it a number? Is it a email? Is it a text area? What kind of form it is, or it can be a select. So the type, what can this first name be? It can be a text, right? So we can add type as text. Okay, so all these basic things are done. Now what I need to add to this form, we need to add a validations. Okay, so to add a validation, so I will create a validators array. Okay, so this is my validators, and this is going to be my array. So array looks like this. Okay, and inside that, depending on how much validation you need to add, you have to create object. So I will have to add two validations. My first validation is required. Okay, so what I will say, I want to give a validator name. So I'll give a validator name, and the name will be, I want to give a validator name as required. Okay, and the second thing I want to give is, okay, this is the validator name. All right, what is the value of that validator? So I will say the required value as true. So this is what you give in the Angular form, right? So if you don't know how to create the Angular form and stuff, so you can go on my YouTube channel and you can just follow this video, so you will get a clear idea about what I'm talking, what is this validator name and all those. So I have shown it everywhere, everything on that particular video. Okay, so validator name is required, and this required will have a value which is true. Okay, and then what you can pass a validation message. So you can just say here message. So I can give a message as first name is required. Okay, you can also add some asterisk in the start so that it look better. Okay, first name is required, and you can say, okay, in this way I can say that your first form control is ready. So there is some typo, let me fix this. Okay, so your first control is ready. So in the same way you can add multiple form controls. Let me add a form control for last name and explain you the code. So as you can see, I've added it for a last name. So here everything is the same. We have name, we have label, value, placeholder, the class, type text, and here there is interesting thing which is the validator. So now I have added two validation, which is first one is required and second one is minimum length. So it's min length, okay? And there is the message as well that minimum char should be 5, okay? In the same way I can add for the others as well, and let me explain you the code. So as you can see, I have added the config for the others as well, like the other control, which is the email, and again everything is same. Wherever things will be different, I'll just explain you that. So for this email I need two validators, required and the second one is email, okay? So as you can see, and also the message that email is not valid. For this one, as you can see that I have a form control name as mobile, the label is mobile, I have applied the classes, and I have two validators, which is required and minimum, the maximum length, because it's mobile number, right? And it should not exceed more than 10 digits. So this is what the message I gave, maximum 10 digit is allowed, okay? Same thing for the weight, that I have added placeholder for this one, that the weight should be in kgs and all, something like that, okay? So you can also do that. And also I added a single validation, and the validation is incorrect, so let me just change it. It should be weight is required, okay? Same thing for the height, let me change this as well. Let me change it to height, and you can see the validation, there is only single. So, and all of them are quite identical, so I'm not explaining them, okay? This one is little interesting, which is the gender, okay? So gender has almost everything similar, but there is new thing which is called as radio options, because this is the label where you can ask that, okay, what is your gender? So it will have two options, right, for the radio buttons, either male or female. So this is the radio options what I have added, okay? So this you can configure by your own as well. You can give it any name. All you need to do is how to use them in the HTML, that I will be showing you, okay? Then this has type radio, and then it has a validator as well, which is required, okay? Same thing for the trainer, that do you require a trainer? So again, this is going to be a radio button, right, that yes or no. So you can select the value. So this is quite identical because this type is radio, okay? Now let me show you for the select. This is again more interesting. For example, right, if you are doing a gym registration, and there you can ask you like what kind of package you need, okay? So that is definitely a select, right? So to do a select, so this is how we can use options, which is, this is also a new thing where option will have ID and value, okay? And you want to show this value in the drop down, okay? All right, so now this is of type select, and again this has the validate. Then I just added some random, which is the motivation, like what is important to you to join the gym, like, and we have several options like get fit, gain more muscle, or weight loss, something like that. But again, one thing too important is that the type is select, and this is the validator what I have, okay? Now the last but not the least, that we are also using one more control, which is inquiry date, and this is of type date, okay? And again, these all are still the identical, the label, class, placeholder, and the validation is required here as well, okay? So that's how we have created our own config, okay? So this is our JSON config, and now I will show you how to actually use this config to create the dynamic form, okay? So if you go on my blog channel, I have written there the steps. The first step is that we have to generate this component called as dynamic form, okay? So we'll go ahead and create this dynamic form component. Open up this terminal, and let's use the command ng, g for generate, c for component, dynamic form. So as you can see, the form got created, and this is a standalone component. You can see this is okay. Now we will be writing all the logics inside this dynamic form component. So the first thing what we need to do is we have to create an input element. So we'll say input. So we'll say @input, because this will input. So this will take a form, right? So this is the form. This will take an input from the user. So this is nothing but the form config which user will be creating, and this is of type any at the moment, but we will give it a type later part of the video, okay? So first thing is done. Then we have to use a form builder. So let me create the form builder, and to do that, right, I will have to inject the form builder, okay? As the form builder injected, now I can create my dynamic form. So let me create my dynamic form group, and to create this form group, this is of type form group, and we can say this dot fb dot group, okay? And we can just pass the object. Done. So my dynamic form is created, which is currently empty, okay? Which means I have to create this form on the fly, okay? So to do that, right, I will be using ng onInit. So let me implement onInit lifecycle hook, and to do it we have to implement. So let me use this ng onInit below, and inside this let me add my logic. So first thing what I need to do, right, as you can see here that I have this register form, and this is how the form look like. So this is an object, and inside this object I have this controls, form control, correct? So as you can see, this is how the type of my form looks like. Okay, so what we will do, right, let me create the type for this form. So to do that, right, I have to create an interface. Okay, and in this interface I will create the form type. So I will say here form dot interface dot ts. Okay, and based on this I can create my type. So I'll say export interface I form. I should be caps, so that's fine. Okay, so the type of this form will look something like what we have in the constant. Like for example, this should have form title, save button, and reset button title, and form control. So let me add this basic one first. So this is how it looks like. So we have this form title, form control, save button title, and reset button title. So this form control, right, we have to create one more interface. So we can just do that below. So we can say export interface, or no need to export because we are in the same file. So we can say interface form control. Okay, we can give the same name here. Okay, so that's how this interface look like, and this interface will have what, the another values, which is the name, label, placeholder, and all those. Okay, so I can copy this form control. Let me copy this object, and what I can do, right, I can make use of a JSON to TS file. So I can just paste it here directly, and this should help me to do the job. Can you see, once I paste this JSON, this gives me the type of the interface. So let me copy this, and I can go here and paste it. Okay, so in this form interface I can remove everything and paste it here. So this root will be changed with form control. Okay, and that's how it looks like. Now one thing to note that we have missed two options here, which is that we need options and we also need the radio options. Okay, so let me just add the options. So we have options. This is of type string, or like this will be of type options because option will have ID and value. So let me create one more interface. So the interface will be, so again, no need this export actually, because we are in the same file, so it's not necessary that we are doing the export. Okay, so now let me create one more interface, and this interface is options. Okay, if you are creating interface, I always prefer giving it a name as I, the prefix. Okay, so let me just do that for the betterment. Okay, so I form control. Okay, let me change this name as well. Okay, everything seems okay. Now let me create this interface I options, and in this I options, what I will have, right, I will have an ID of type number, and I can have the value of the select. So this is I'm doing for this option is for the select options. So we have this select type, right? So this is of type string. Okay, and I can use this I options here. So this can be the array, right? So this will be I options, array of I. Okay, now I also have radio buttons, correct? But the radio buttons will be of type string. So what I will do, right, I will just make it here as a radio button, or I'll say radio options. Okay, and this is of type string. Okay, so in this way I can say that my form types are ready. Okay, where I have this validators and all. One thing to note here that with the validator side we have only one validator which is required. Okay, so let me put it in the bottom and let me add all of them, because these two are common for all, which is validator name and message. But this will be all my validation which provides by Angular. So first one, which is required. The second one, it can be a pattern. So we have a pattern validator, right? So we can use pattern validator, and all of them will be optional. So let me just put that optional. Okay, then we have min length, then we have max length, then we have email validator, and that's it. So now I can say this, everything's are ready now. Okay, so now I can use this type wherever I need. So for now I'll go here in the dynamic form. Rather than using any, I can make this as I form. Okay, of type I form. Now because of this interface, this will help me a lot during the development, and you will see that. So for example, right now I need to check if my form, okay, so if I have a form controls, then I'll have to perform the logic. So if this dot form, so nullable, I'm just checking the null as well, form controls. If this guy has form controls, then do the job. Okay, now I will create the form group. So let me create the form group. I'll select form group of type form group. Okay, and I will assign it as empty at the moment. Okay, so if you think, right, this is declare but never read, because once we will read it, so this error will get, there will be no such error then. Okay, now to create the form, right, dynamically, we will have to make use of for each loop. So I will say this dot form, and I have form control. Okay, and this is then array. So I can use for each. Okay, I will loop to all the loops. So I'll go here, form controls dot for each, and this is my control of type any, and inside that, so rather than using any, what I can do, right, I'll go in the interface here and I can export this validate. Okay, I can export this validator. I can give this type here, which is I validate. Okay, and now I can make use of it, which is control dot and all this. Okay, I did a small mistake here. If you see, this is not a validator. This should be I form control, something like that, I guess. Yes. So I need to export this also so that I can use it. So export, and I can go here and I will remove it to say I form control. Okay, now I can use this. So what I will do, right? So once I'm inside this form control, I will create the form validations inside that. Okay, so I'll say let control validator. Okay, control validators, type any, and inside that I will have to push all my control validators for each control. Okay, so what I will do, I'll first check if my control dot validators. So if I have this control dot validators, if it is there, then do something. Okay, so what I will do, I'll just go here control dot validators dot for each, and inside this, right, let me just say it as a val, and this will be of type I validator now. Okay, this is correct. And now what I will do, right, I will have to bind all the control validator. Okay, for example, right, I will be using required, email, min length, pattern, max length, all those validators, correct? So I have to push them inside this validate. So what I will do, I'll have to do a if conditions here. So I'll say if value dot validator name, okay, if it is equal to my required. If it is required, then please go ahead and push validators from Angular. So I will say that. Okay, so what you can do, you will say control validator dot push. Okay, if I say dot push, it should help me. Okay, it's not, it's fine, because this is an array, right? So in this array I'm trying to push. So array dot push, what I want to push, I want to push validators dot required. Okay, so this is the, okay, if you guys are confused, what is this? This is nothing but my simple if condition, so which looks something like this. Okay, but I can also, if it is a single line change, then what you can do, you don't need to use this, you can directly use something like this. So if this is true, it will do this. Okay, same thing I have to do for the other validators, so which is val dot validator name. If my validator name is equal to email, then I will pass the control value validator dot push, and inside this push I will pass the email validator. Okay, email. Same way I have to do it for min length, pattern, and max length. Okay, so one thing to note here, that this min L is small. Okay, so just make a note, this is not capital L, it's a small L. Okay, so this should match like this. Okay, if it is min length, max length, and pattern, then please do this. Okay, now if you see that I'm getting this error because I need to have this number. So this is all undefined number and all this is complaining because of that the value cannot be defined and all. Okay, so what we can do, we can just add, we can have to remove the type. Okay, so we have to change the type of that. So let's go in the interface, and I can see there is a mistake here, that min length, max length cannot be a string. So this should be of type number. Okay, and again max length should be a number, because Angular cannot accept min length and max length as a string. Okay, so first mistake was that, so we have corrected that. And for the pattern, let me check what is the type. So let me just check for the pattern. So the pattern is string, which is okay. Let me explicitly define the type of all this. Okay, so that if I know this is all a TypeScript error, so I just need to define them explicitly, that this min length will be as a number. Okay, so that it should not complain. So this will be a number, this pattern should be a string, so this is as string, and same for this one as well, so we can use as a number. Okay, so that we can tell TypeScript that, hey, don't complain, this will be of type number and string. Okay, and once this is done, right, so what you can do, right, suppose if you want to add for other validators, which I mean, for example, right now I'm just using limited example, which is required, email, min length, max length, and whatnot. If you do min validators dot this, right, so you can see we have lot of validator methods, which is required, pattern, required, true, min, max, compose. Okay, we can do for all of them as well. So if you do that, you just need to define them here. Okay, in this if conditions. Also this max length, min length, why I'm comparing this, because this is part of my config. If you see, right, so this is my min length somewhere here. Okay, this is the validator name. If this is min length, then please apply this value. See, this is what I'm trying to do, right? So if this is min length, please apply this val dot min length, which is my value, right? This big min length. If you go here in the config constant again, you can see this value min length, which is 5. Okay, and that's how it will dynamically, so what it will do, right, this will basically do this at the runtime. So this min length will be 5 for that control at the runtime. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do it here by using this for each loop. So now once this is done, right, so what we will do, we'll come out of this loop, which is this if condition, and now we will say form group, which I have defined it on the top. Form group, inside that we have the control name, right, to define. So we'll say control dot name. Okay, we will assign them a value, which is control dot value. If it has any value, please assign the value, or if it has a value, then assign a value, or else keep it empty. Okay, and the second thing, I have to assign the validators for each form group. Okay, so let this make this as an any, because it is complaining because of that. So let me just put it as any, and let this take a dynamic value, whatever I'll get it from here. Okay, so once I put any, it fixed that problem. Okay, so now once this is done, right, now your form group is ready here on this point of time. Okay, now which means your form gets ready at this point of time. Just below that, you have to assign it to your dynamic form which you created on the top. So what I will do here now, I'll say this dot dynamic form group is equals to your this dot fb, which is my form builder dot group, and I can pass the form group which I have just created on the top form, and that's it. So by this piece of code, you will be able to create your form builder dynamically. So this will create your form group, okay, dynamically. Okay, so this guy will help you to do that. Okay, if you want, you can extract this to a separate method and you can do that, but I just did it on the ng on it because this is a one-time job for me in this common component. Okay, now this is done. Now what I need to handle, right, I need to handle the on submit, so I can do that as well. On submit, what I need to do, on submit. So we have this on submit, and I'll just log the value of the form. So I can just do console.log this dot dynamic form dot value. Okay, so this is done. So let me just save all the changes. So your template part is done. If I save all the, let me see if it is failing, or yeah, everything is okay, compile success. So your TS part is done. Now you have to design the template for your form. Okay, so I will be using Bootstrap, right? So what you can do, right, you can just go ahead and take any template from the Bootstrap website. So you can just search for form, and there you can find some form layouts. So whichever you feel find which is good. So maybe you can use this layout, because I will be using something similar. Okay, so let me just show you how the template actually looks like. So let me copy this template and let's go here and paste it here. Control V, save the changes, and this is how this template looks like. Okay, and let me go in the app.component. Let me just put it below by creating a container class. So div class container, and below that I can use the component, which is my app dynamic form. See why this is not working, because this is a standalone component. So to use it in the other component, you will have to import the component. So let me import the component by saying dynamic form. Okay, and now I can use the selector here, app dynamic form, and I can save the changes, and you can see it on the browser how it. So for now, this is how the form looks like. Again, this is not dynamic, this is all static, which I have just copy pasted in the HTML. Okay, now to use a form, what you need a form group. So you need a form group. Again, I'm not able to use form group because I have to import reactive form. Again, this is a standalone component, so no need to do that in app module or something like that, because now we have no modules in standalone component. So what I need to do, I need to go in this standalone component, which is my form, and here I will import reactive forms module. Okay, and now I can make use of form group. Okay, what is my form group? My form group name is dynamic form group, which I have created, and save the changes, compile success. Okay, now what is the first thing you need in this whole form? Okay, the first thing you need is the title of the form. So what I will do, right, I'll make use of a div, or maybe I can use a s3 tag, and let me give the title of the form by saying form dot title, form title. Okay, save the change. Okay, now if I go here, right, see, still it is not rendering anything. Why? Because I have this form, right, as an input, but I'm not passing it here. So if you know how to pass data between two components, so you must know what I'm missing here. So as I'm using @input in the child component, so I will have to pass the value from parent component. So in the parent component, right, I will have to use the form. So let me create the property register form, and let me make use of the register config. Okay, so as you remember that we have created the register form config. Can you see I imported this on the top, which is present in the constant register form.constant. and once you have this, right, now what we will do, we will say that, hey form, this is my child property, please pass in the register form which is there. Okay, now again this guy also complains about because of the form type and all. So what we can do, right, we can also mention this guy that, okay, this is of type I form. Okay, I can still see that it is still complaining about the type, and this is the beauty of using a TypeScript, right? So this will not allow if the type are mismatching and all those. So let me show you the power of TypeScript and how do we get rid of this also. Okay, so now let's go in the register form constant and let's define the type here as well so that everything can match. So I can say here I form. Okay, so once I say I form, right, this is giving me a lot of complaints because there are some fields which I am not using. Okay, for example, if you go here in the form interface, I made all this as a required field because sometimes I'm not using radio options, sometimes I'm not using options, because if it is text I don't need to use these two, so I have to make all this optional. Okay, so once I make this optional, I think this should help me to do, because for some I'm not using the placeholder also, for some I'm not using value also. Okay, so once I make all of this optional and if I click on save all changes, and now let's go here in your app component, see the error is gone. Okay, so that's how TypeScript always helps you to do or I can say, or to write better code. Okay, so once I save all the changes, now I can see my register form is ready. And now what I can do, right, I was rendering the title. Again, this content is not dynamic, it's still static. The only thing is this title is dynamic. If I change the title from here to Shashi's registration form, okay, something like that, Shashi's registration form, so can you see the name got changed here as well? So this is all reflecting now. Okay, now let's go ahead and create the template. Let's create the template now. How do we do it? So we don't need all of this now, so I can get rid of this static values. Oh, it's a lot. Let me remove all of this till the button. Okay, now I just need a form, and inside this form I will have to generate, or I will have to generate the form controls dynamically. So for that I will have to make use of ng-for. So inside this I will use ng container, and in the ng container I will have to loop with all my form controls. So I'll say star ng-for let control of form dot form control. Okay, now I can loop with all my controls here, and now I will have to make use of some ng-ifs, some bunch of ng-if. Okay, so the first ng-if, let me just use a div here, or maybe I can directly use ng container. It's all up to you. So I'll just go with a div for now. So I will have a div, and inside that div I will have a label. Okay, and below this label I will have an input. Okay, so again this all are you can use from Bootstrap, label and input. Okay, but I'm just doing it from scratch so that I can explain you guys what I'm trying to do. So if this has label for, let me remove this, and this is type, let's skip that for now. And now what I will do here, I will make use of ng-if. Okay, star ng-if if text comma email password number date. So if this is my array of types, okay, if I say if array of types dot includes, if it includes control dot type, okay, if my control type is any one of this, then please show this div. That's what this ng-if means. Okay, which means if it is matching with any of this control, please display this div. Okay, and what this div has a label. So what I can do, I can just say, okay, show this control dot label. See, this is the beauty of TypeScript, man. See, if I just say dot, this is helping me with the IntelliSense. If you use any, it will not help you to do that. Okay, now I have a dynamic label. Now in the same way, this type, I cannot bind it just with text. I can do that. I can use it dynamically. How? I have a control, right? I have a control dot, what is the type, right? So the type which we have mentioned in the constant. So the type is text for first name, type is number for mobile number and all that. Let me save the change. Now if I save the changes, let me show you how the form looks like. Can you see? I'm able to see all the necessary which are type, date, number, email, string and string. Okay, string means text. Okay, so that I can see that. But now I need to apply some classes. So let me apply some classes. Okay, so for label I can apply a Bootstrap class which is form label, and for input I can apply a class called as form control and save the change. Can you see? I got this beautiful form. Now also what I can do here in the div, that I have access to a class, right? So if you see here in the constant, I have applied a class as well. So I can apply this class as well on my form div. So what I can say class with the property binding, and I can say that control dot, so this has to be done here. So this will be again property binding class, and I can say control dot class. And once I apply that class, whatever class you have added in your constants in your config, if you save the changes, you can see everything gets applied. Okay, so this colmd6 6 colmd4 4 4, this is colmd4 colmd4. Okay, so now we are able to handle these 5 types. Now we have to handle for the other. So for the other, again we can make use of another div. So this is the div, and here again we will have an ngIf. So I can say ngIf control dot type. If my control dot type is equal to select, if it is select, then please display this div. Also I can bind the class, so class will be equals to my control dot class. Okay, and if it is type select, so I can display this value. Again we need to do the same thing. I can copy the label from the top and I can paste it here. Okay, so the label is done. Now how do we use select? It's easy. If you go here on the Bootstrap website, you can get the select options from here. Select. So that's how the select looks like. So I can copy this and I can paste it just below the label. Okay, all you need to do is you have to assign a form control. Again, one thing I missed it here as well, that to use form, reactive form, you need to use the make use of form control name. So I can say form control name, and I can assign the value by saying control dot name. Remember we had a control dot name, and I told you that this control name is nothing but my form control. Okay, so that's what you need to apply it here as well. So same thing I will do on the select also. So let me copy this and paste it here. Save. So first thing what I can do, I can just say value. If it is empty value, then always say choose option, choose. Okay, and for the options, right, we can again make use of ng container, because we have to make use of ng for, so that's why we have ng container. And I will say star ng for let opt of control dot options. Remember we had options and radio options, so we are using options for select. Now inside this we can say option. Okay, so we can make use of value, or there is something called as ng value. You can use any. So this is value, and you can assign opt option dot value. Okay, same thing you can do here. If you want to pass value as id, you can do that also, up to you. So opt dot value. Okay, so in this way your select is also done. Now in the similar way I have to do for type radio, which I have just pasted it here, that this is an ngIf of type radio. If this is radio, then please show this, and there I am displaying the label by control.label. And again this was ng for again, so we have an ng container, and what we are doing, right, we are saying control.radio options, because radio options, what is the value? It is yes and no, right, something like that, so or male or female. So that's how we are using this. So let me just show you the radio options so that it can make sense. So here you can see this is the radio options, which has two option, male and female. Okay, and that's what it renders here on the input, and we are passing the form control name, value, and the label, and that's it. Okay, and let me save the changes. And once I save the changes, and if I go on the browser, can you see my form got created? Okay, my form got created. I can see all the options, all are coming from the config. See, I'm able to select the values as well. I'm able to use this radio button and everything. Now what I need to do, right, so this form is done, but there is one problem, right, the validation, and also there is no button as well. So what I'll do, right, I'll just add the button just below it. Okay, so what I'll do, just above this form I need to have my button. So this is how my buttons looks like, the button code. This is the div, okay, which has two methods. So the first method is on submit, and second has reset form. So on submit we have already created, and what will be the title of the button? So this is coming from the form, right? We have form.save button title, form.reset button title. So let me create this reset form. So for that, let me go here and we'll say reset form. And in this method, what we will do, we'll say this dot dynamic form dot reset. So this will reset your form. Okay, let's save the change. So everything looks perfect now. The only last part pending is showing the validation error. Okay, how do we show the validation error? It's again very easy. So what we can do, every below the form control, you have to show the error. So I'll just choose this one. So what I'll say use of small tag, and this will have a class which says text danger. This is red color. For red color we say text danger in Bootstrap. Okay, now suppose I want to throw an error. This is validation error. Okay, and I'm doing this error for this type, text, email, password and date. If I save the changes, if I go on the browser, can you see I'm getting this validation error for all of them, which is not good, right? I want to show this dynamic error, correct? So for that, what I will do, this message, rather than getting this message, what we will do, I will create a method. Okay, in the component, and this method will help me to give all the validation errors. Okay, so what I will say, get validation errors. Okay, all you need to do, you just need to pass the control. So this is of type iForm control. So once you pass the control, okay, so this method I will be using. So what I will do, so this method should return string. Okay, this method should return a string. Okay, now I go here and I'll just put it here, get validation error, and I can pass the control. That's it. And now this method will help me to return the validation errors or the validation messages. Okay, so what I will do, I'll first take the control. Okay, so I'll say const my form control equals to this dot dynamic form group dot, I say get, and in the get, if you want to get the control, you just need to pass the control name. So I can say control dot name. Okay, now this form control, okay, this is better. So this form control I got. Now I want to check the validation error if this guy has. So what we can do, right? Again, we have to do a for loop. Okay, so what we will do, we'll say control dot validators dot for each. Okay, for each loop. So we added a for each loop, and inside that I can have my validator. So val, and now what I need to check, if my control dot has error. If it has error, what kind of error? Val dot validation name. If it has a my validation name error, so I can just say it as a string. Okay, if it has a error, okay, what I just mentioned, then please return, I'll say return val dot the message, the validator message what I have given. Okay, or else return blank. That's it. If I remove this, right, so this guy will complain. To get rid of this complaint, what we can do, right? So better, we will just create a let error message. Okay, and we will define it as an empty string. Okay, and now what we will do, right, whenever if there is any error, so we'll say error message will be equals to my val dot message. Okay, and this is, okay, again complaint, so we can just say is as string. So this is as string, which I can pass it here. And once this loop is done, okay, so once this is done, we will say error message. Okay, sorry, this should be return error message. So say return the error message, and that's save the changes. And now we are ready to test the validation for these controls. Okay, save the changes, and we can see. Let's go on the browser. And now if my form is touched, if I touch the form, if I go outside, can you see I get the error, first name is required. Same for last name, same for email, mobile, weight, height. For gender it doesn't work because this is of type radio. So for radio it is not working at the moment, we have to add it. But for the date time it should work. Can you see? For all those input it is working. So now we have to fix it for the radio button and for the drop, for the select. Okay, let's do that. So what we'll do, right, we'll again go ahead and copy this small, what the error what we have did, just copy this whole. See how easy it is now, we just have to copy paste, that's it. So just paste it below the select, and same thing we have to do for the radio as well. So wherever the label ends, right, just below that you can paste. So if I save the changes, and let's see if that works. So now if I go here for the packages, if I go, see, click outside, it works. Okay, so same for this male and female as well. Like currently we have the value, that's why it is, we are not able to see it. Okay, so but now what I need to do, right, so now there is only one last thing pending. Now we are able to add the validation for all of the form control. Now what I need to do, like whenever I click on register, I want to display the error. So how I can do that? So we have to make use of something called as ng form. Okay, so I'll go here in the form and make use of template reference variable by saying my form, and I will say here as ng form directive. Okay, so I just pass this ng form directive inside this my form, save the changes. Now to do that, right, so there is something called as form options. Okay, so we have to make use of the options which is on the top wherever we are creating this dynamic form group. So here we can pass extra options. Can you see these options? And that is update on. So it should update on submit. So this is what you just need to put here. Okay, so once you put it here like that, what you can do, right, you get a option called as submitted. Okay, so here now with this form, my form, you can add one more check here for this touched. If it is touched, or I can say my form dot submitted. If this is true, right, so it should throw the error. So now if it is submitted and it is touched, something like that, that we can put, and it is invalid. So now if I click on register, can you see I'm able to get those errors? Okay, same thing I need to do for the radio button and for the packages. So let's go and do for the radio button packages. I can copy the same code, my submitted with an or condition, and I can put it here. Same thing I can do for the radio options, which I can do it here after touched. Okay, now save the changes. Now if I click on register again, if my forms are invalid, it will throw error for all of them. I can see there is one issue with this. Okay, because we have used the error on the wrong place. So let me go in the radio button again. Okay, so the mistake is this. We should not use this small here. We should use it after the ng container, or else it will loop for 2 times. Save the changes. Let's go here and now let's click on register. Can you see? Now I'm able to see all the validation message correctly, and you can see this one looks cool better because I have this asterisk. So you can do it for all you need to do is just go ahead in your const config and just update your error messages with this star. For example, I can just show it very quickly for this one, star, and it should work. Okay, if I click on register again, see, it looks so good. Not just that, I can also check if my second validation is working or not. Like for example, for this last name, I have minimum character 5. If I say here A, can you see? The other validation is also working. Okay, for the last name. Same thing for the email as well. See, it is email is not valid. It's giving me email as not valid. For mobile number also we can check by typing the number. If you increase more than 10, it says 10 digit is not allowed and the form becomes invalid. Okay, so you can test it for all of them, and do let me know if you were able to create this form with me. Okay, so let me just remove this button as necessary button because it doesn't look good, because now we have almost completed the video, so no need to show this unnecessary things. Save the changes, and that's it. So this is how you can see that we have created a dynamic form by using JSON. Okay, if you want to test it, right, you can go ahead and create any config what you want. Just follow the same pattern, and do let me know if you are able to create your own dynamic forms. So that's it from this today's video. I hope you have not learned something very interesting, but also something exceptionally valuable. I have tried my level best to explain you this complex topic as easy I can, but still, if you want to learn this in, like, you want the blog version of it, so you can find it on my website, which is letsprogram.in. So not just this blog, I have also written a lot of blog around Angular, Kafka, design pattern, how to install MongoDB in Windows and all that. So you can find those blogs on my website as well. Also, if you want to find all my latest video at a single place, so also you can get it in this video section, okay, where I'm uploading all my videos there, so you can have a look at there as well. Okay, and thank you so much for being the part of this journey with me. And if you have enjoyed this video, then please do not forget to hit that like button, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have loved my content. Your support really means a world to me. All right, so until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and see you next time. Bye bye.